Portland, Oregon. A city built by timber. A city nourished by technology. A city of 750,000 souls. A city of more than 1,000,000 stories to be told. Stories of hope and stories of hopelessness. Some tell their story with music. Some in print. Some tell their story on street corners. Some in clubs, auditoriums, or theaters large and small throughout the city. Everywhere you look, there seems to be someone telling a different story.
Humankind has been telling stories for millions of years. It was probably the primary reason for the development of communication. Telling stories seems to be in our DNA. Even early man was compelled to tell stories to his brethren. Probably the most famous storytellers were the Native Americans, teaching their young about their religious backgrounds, a reverence for the land and its bounty.
Storytelling goes on around us all the time. Did you know, for instance, that your local library holds special story time gatherings for the kids to get them used to hearing and telling stories? As technology has evolved, our ability to save and share stories has improved. But along with the stories becoming bigger, we began to lose that intimate connection with the storyteller. It started being more about how we tell the story than about the story itself. To paraphrase Marshall McLuhan, we've become connected more to the medium than to the message. Today, however, within the cacophony of tales, there are those who still practice the skills of storytelling, not for the sake of converting others to their fold, nor specifically to teach or enlighten, but for the sheer joy of telling stories. They gather in venues small and large, in vacant classrooms, small clubs, tiny backstreet theaters. You won't find them spouting the vaunted prose of the bard, crying out for Stella to share their struggle, or channeling Chekhov knee-deep in Neil Simon dialogue. But these people are not actors per se. They are storytellers. They share personal, heartfelt, sometimes humorous, sometimes wrenching tales of average, everyday lives. They don't enjoy the advantage of expansive productions with huge set pieces, elaborate costumes, hair, and makeup. Usually, they're joined on stage by little more than a microphone, a plain backdrop, and maybe a chair. And using only their voices, expressions, timing, and talent, they transport the audience to other times, other places, other experiences.
I borrowed Claire's blue sweatshirt yesterday for games. I left it out because I got hot and it rained all night, so it got drenched and had slugs attached to it. So she threw my towel on the ground. Bitch.
Once upon a time, there were 4 people named everybody, anybody, somebody, and nobody. When there was an important job to be done, Everybody thought that somebody would do it. Anybody could have done it, but nobody did it.
They awaken within the listener memories of their own past, and they paint ethereal pictures so vivid that some recall the smell of Grandma's cinnamon cookies, or the panic over a child's missing pet.
And they say that there are in the land places that are called thin places. Places where the veil that separates the living from the dead, this world from the other world, it's so thin you can feel those places. And some people call such places haunted places. Someone called them holy places.
We never heard more about what happened to Bonnie. We only knew that a strong, healthy young man left our village and came back in a few years as ashes.
One day, she was pondering around the house, and she spied a wuggly old itch, spitting and singing at a dippo. She reached out her hand and pricked her finger. Well, the quick as a wink, she fell into a fleet sea, and all the Folgers in the slightest smell of it too.
There exists somewhat of a fraternity of storytellers around the country. These groups come in different sizes and each with a different focus, with names like Urban Tellers, Armchair Adventurers, Mortified, Back Fence, Wisdom of the Elders, The Moth, and others. Among this fraternity in Portland, we found the Portland Storytellers Guild. A part of the National Storytellers Network, this group of folks are dedicated to the art of storytelling and work to bring tellers together, to mentor each other, and to bring their stories to the forefront of performance art in Portland.
Well, I had been doing storytelling for about 10 years. What happened was I saw a great storyteller in 1981. His name was Jay O'Callahan. First time I'd ever saw a storyteller. And I was just mesmerized by that. And right after that, I said, this is something that I want to start doing. So I started volunteering time at schools and libraries. Some friends of mine were teachers, and others were librarians. And then I moved to Portland from Seattle and just gravitated to people that were telling stories. And the Guild is such a welcoming place. That's what I had noticed right away. It was immediately like, yeah, come on in, you know, share a story. Here's some of the other tellers, here's some things that we're doing. You know, very generous, open-hearted people.
It feels like it's the beginning of the telling of it and the creation of it, and I think the story is there.
It needs to be filled in.
Yeah.
Okay.
They hone their craft, learning from each other how vocal inflection, volume, cadence, and even small physical actions can carry the audience along the invisible path, perhaps to a place where each person's own stories can be told and heard.